Hello there and good morning. This is Brand Designs. We're here for our next episode and we're very, very pleased to be joined with our guest for today, Rich Hawkins from Gravity Industries. So, Rich, good morning. How are you?
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to it.
And the usual suspect, Mr. Nathan Lomax, is here as well with us. So, good morning to you, Nathan.
Morning, JD. How's things?
Yeah, all right, not too bad. I think it's great to have Rich on the podcast today because I think he's going to be an interesting interviewee, I think, for today with his background in some of the businesses. So,
Well, there's so many different businesses and fingers in different pies with Gravity Fitness and then also with Venom Bike. I mean, there's a couple to look at there. And just before we came on air, he was talking about other irons in the fire and other things on the horizon. So excited to hear more about what makes him tick and whether he's got a kind of repeatable model. So, yeah, JD, over to you for the first question, sir.
so I suppose, Rich, that leads into tell us a little bit around how you came about building Gravity and Venom as two brands that kind of fit together in your world. What does that look like? How did they kind of spring up?
So honestly, it was kind of accidental. So Venom was my first brand, and it all kind of started that I actually started my career, if you can call it a career, as a doorman. So I used to work as a bouncer on nightclubs. Ended up having my own bar. Thought I'd made it. To be honest, it was a dump, and that's putting it lightly. But at the time, it was my everything. Um, Ended up folding, going wrong. Never really made any money out of it, and I kind of got myself to a bit of a crossroads of what next. Um, and to be honest, what happened was my stepson at the time, I mean, he's 18 now, but he was 7 at the time, I believe. He was mad into stunt scooters, and all he wanted that Christmas was metal wheels because all the scooters at the time came with plastic wheels. And I thought, maybe there's something in that. Maybe there's an opportunity. Maybe I could build a business around that. So I actually started my kind of e-com or brand building career as drop shipping. So I was drop shipping scooter products purely on eBay. And we literally went from doing absolutely nothing and starting to selling like 200 sets of these wheels a week, like really, really quickly. And it went really, really well. And I got really in with the guy who owned the brand, and I kind of saw what he was doing and how he was doing it, and that he was really just private labeling these scooter parts. He was just having them manufactured in China, putting his own brand on there. And it always really interested me. Now, what happened is as time went on, all of the scooter manufacturers started to clock on that, they needed to have metal wheels as standard. So that business began to dwindle quite quickly. So I started looking for, what's next? What am I going to do? I've got to do something. And I'm in this kind of world now. What do we do? And I was at a show it was September 2012. It was called Scoot Fest. And there was these kids there riding around on these little mini bikes that had like wheelbarrow tires on them. And every kid in that show, they were literally like flies to what. They were all over these bikes. And I thought, there's something in this. What are they? Went home and in 2012 YouTube wasn't what it is now. Found this video of these guys in Indonesia that were hand making these small bikes. And the story goes that one of them had a disabled daughter that couldn't balance on a normal bike. So they put wheelbarrow wheels because they were wider. And they were hand making them, selling them all over the world. And they'd made a video and had something like 1.1 million views back in 2012.
Yeah.
And that was where the idea for Venom kind of came from. So in my naive jumping with both feet kind of way, it was, this will be easy. I'll make some of these bikes in China, import them, I'll make a killing. Got laughed at by all the manufacturers, told I needed 30k or needed to buy 1,000 bikes. But after about 3 months, I did find a manufacturer that would let me make 200 bikes. And that was every penny I had. And to be honest, a lot more than every penny I had. So it was a bit brash. I wouldn't advise that people go in quite that way. Had lots of sleepless nights, but it was back in the heyday where Facebook ads just worked. Like there wasn't really targeting and retargeting. It was very, very easy. And we sold out of stock in 4 days. And that was kind of how Venom was born and started, just off these mini bikes. And we went on, sold all over the world, sold into retailers, and it grew and grew and grew. So that's really how Venom was founded.
So I suppose from the starting point with Venom, you've then kind of taken that further into another brand, haven't you? You've kind of what was the turning point for you as Venom got to a point you went, well, actually, there might be something else here in me. What's the next thing I want to scratch? I want to itch.
So what kind of happened with Venom is it progressed very much to a B2B type brand. So we were selling to lots of shops, which was great from a lifestyle point of view. But I was a bit bored and I wanted something a bit more. And I started training calisthenics, like bodyweight exercises, in the summer of 2015. And kind of saw this wave of new fitness. I mean, I've been into fitness my whole life. I saw this new wave of bodyweight training coming, and I knew there was something in it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was or how I was going to build a business around it. And what happened is I kind of went home and decided that I wanted some equipment to use. And I bought some what I call Parallettes. They're like, if you imagine like big handles, like push-up stands, but bigger ones. And I bought some on eBay, and they arrived, and they were glued together, waste pipe off the back of a sink. So the waste pipe that you'd have on the back of your bathroom sink, they were then glued together with the elbows you'd have on the back of your sink. And I paid like £37 for it. And I was annoyed. And I went back to the seller and said, these are absolute junk. I'm sending them back. I want my money back. And he said, yeah, no problem, send them back. And when I looked, eBay gives you kind of the numbers that it sold. And it sold 250 units. And I thought, maybe there's something in this. Maybe people want these Parallettes. And at the time, there was literally these plastic, really bad ones that were under £40, or steel ones that were like over 150. And I figured that maybe if I could mass produce these with my contacts in Asia, maybe there'd be a business here. And I remember thinking, when I ordered the first 200, I remember thinking, I don't really know if this is going to be worth it. Like, I found 200 of these, I'm going to do all right, but is it even worth the hassle? We've probably sold 70 or 80,000 sets of those Parallettes now since 2015. So, yeah, it was definitely worth it. And it's now the two. Yeah, so, it worked out really well in the end. But I remember having a lot of self-doubt at the time. And that was kind of how that was found again. So the brands are very much an extension of me and what I do and what I'm interested in. Now, I think you have to be careful with that, because it's a bit like I speak to people almost weekly that say, I like the gym, I'm going to do supplements, or I like the gym, I'm going to be the next Gymshark. And I feel that that's a bit like an alcoholic saying, I like beer, so I'm going to open a pub. Like, it isn't the best business strategy. But if you know how to do your due diligence and spot an opportunity for what it is, then I believe it can be a very powerful way to move forward, is to do things that you're interested in and passionate about. Because in my experience, just selling a box or doing a brand that you've got no interest or no care about gets quite tedious pretty quickly. And I'm sure you guys have experienced, business gets tough, it gets hard. Yeah. And unless you've got the love for it, you find people often give up. Whereas if you've got that passion and that drive, you can keep moving forward. And that's been a big part for me, definitely.
Rich, I'm fascinated by your mindset there. You seem to have this little light bulb moment that comes on when you just go, oh, maybe there's something in this. But then you actually pull the trigger. And so many owner-founders that we talk to, or potential owner-founders that actually never get there, is that procrastination piece where they don't just go and do it. You seem to have this drive where you do go, you know what, sod it, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to buy 50 units, I'm going to buy 100 units or whatever. For those that are really at that tipping point and looking to take the next step and take their first jump into self-employment and entrepreneurship, what would you say to those people? How do they just get that final couple of percent to get over the line and just do it?
So for me, I mean, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, I'd have said, just do it, just jump in with both feet, don't worry about it. As time's gone on, I've realised that isn't actually the best strategy. Learn how to do your due diligence. Now, it's quite easy these days. There's so many tools. If we were looking at brands or products, we can see who's searching for these products. Are people buying them on Amazon? Are people buying them on other channels? Whatever it may be. Be confident in doing the numbers. And if the numbers work, then just go for it. What more do you need? The numbers are there in black and white in front of you. People want this product. There is a market for it. Get in and get it done. That would be my thoughts behind it. And start small. Start small. Keep your risk very, very low. I mean, I spoke to somebody once that had been to, I don't know, some mentor of some kind, and this guy had encouraged him to put £28,000 worth of stock on the credit card for his first order. Wow. If I'm launching a new brand still now, I will order the minimum amount possible, a couple of thousand in pounds, not necessarily in units, as low as I can possibly order, because all the due diligence in the world doesn't necessarily give you the data. What gives you the data is putting the first minimum viable product out there, getting something into the market and getting feedback from your customers. You can procrastinate, you can try and get it perfect, get all your ducks in the row, but actually there's going to be spanners in the works, there's going to be things. For instance, the first set of Parallettes we did, and I would have never seen this coming, one of the feedbacks that we got is that they weren't wide enough to do a certain exercise where you put your forearms on it. Now, I could have spent months and months and months, and I would have never found that out without putting the product into the market. So you've got to put something out there. Start small. Don't necessarily worry too much about making huge margins from the off. Make sure you've got the margin moving forward as and when you can order larger and you can go bigger. But actually, your first order probably isn't going to be hugely profitable. Your first order is really to test the market, and that's the essential part that many people miss out, I believe.
Have you ever been one of these people? You talked a little bit about that perfection piece. Are you one of these people that drives for perfection, or it sounds as though you're more on that kind of 70% is good enough. Let's get something into the market or get something going that I learn from, rather than, Nathan talked about procrastination. It sounds as though you're much more of a let's just do rather than let's just plan.
100%, because until you've got real clear data about your brand and your products and your customers, actually everything else is guesswork and opinion. Like I used to be very nitpicky. Like I'd sit with my web designer and I'd say, you need to move that. And he'd say, well, I can't do it, Rich. We've got to use hard code for that. I don't care, do it. And I'd end up with this website so full of code that it would be really, really slow to load. And I'd lose customers because it was slower, but just because I wanted something to sit in the right place on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, which ultimately was just my opinion and my preference. It didn't drive any extra sales or any extra purchases. There's certain things that you need, clear call to action, keep it simple, but you can nitpick way too much and just dig yourself a deep hole. I mean, I saw you both smiling there, so I'm guessing you've worked with clients that are a bit like that.
I'm going to send our clients this episode and be like, look, just shut up and watch this. Just listen to Rich. Yeah.
I've been that guy. And ultimately, it does. So to give you an example of that, which I found really interesting, is, so I've always been a believer that if you don't have too many products, or certainly have your featured products on your homepage, so that it's really, really simple. Have them just below the fold so that you can, people can just go to a website, and I do this myself. I'll go to a website, see what I want to buy, click it, keep it simple. Perfect. That's fine. And I would have literally sworn to you until the cows come home, that's the way to do it. That's my customer behavior. But we started putting some heat maps together of actually where customers are clicking. And they're not scrolling down past the fold at all. They're literally going on the website. They're looking at the shop on the top left-hand corner. They're clicking shop and going into the shop page. They're not even scrolling down, or the majority of customers are not even scrolling down. So there's a massive example of something that was based on my opinion that I honestly thought I was completely right in, but the data and the experience of actually having the customer on the website, I was way off. I was completely wrong in my approach. And I think that's really important. I think you can have as many opinions as you like about a product, but until you've got it in customers' hands, you really don't know.
Rich, with tools like Shopify, obviously it's become much more accessible for those with an idea to get it to market. The trouble is there's two sides to this. There's the traffic and there's conversion. And while people can probably go about their journey of building a Shopify store, creating a theme, all that good stuff, actually getting traffic to it is often the hardest part. You mentioned earlier a bit about due diligence. Do you have a formula or a blueprint for the due diligence process and for the kind of early stage process? Is it like, okay, whatever I spend on stock, I'm going to spend on marketing, and 25% of that is going to be on Facebook ads, 25% might be on Google ads, etc. Is there a written formula that you do time and time again, or actually does it vary?
So not as hard and fixed as that from a marketing spend perspective. Before that, if I'm looking at a new product, I will really do my homework. So I will go right into the nitty gritty of, are people searching for this or similar products? Is there some way I can improve? Because gone are the days are the fact that you can just do kind of Me Too products that are all the same. I believe those days are over, especially with China much heavily focusing on shipping stock here. So you've got to be able to find a way to stand out, to improve the product, to make it better. So that's part of the due diligence that I would do. I would look to, who is the customer? And this is number one. I sat down with a guy a few weeks ago who's pretty well established. He's just done 100K in 12 months. And I said to him, okay, who's your customer? And he had no idea who it was. He didn't know what their age group was, their avatar. He knew nothing about his customer. Just a couple of rough things, but nothing major. The fact is, you don't build a product and then find a customer. You find the customer and then you build the product to serve them. And that is so much clearer and so much more simple, but people overlook it so much. They go, I really like this product, I'm going to do it. Well, who's the customer for it? If there's no customer for it, then realistically there's no business. So I'll do that homework first. I'll also do things like use free Amazon tools and see, are they selling on Amazon or similar products and similar niches? Are people looking for it? I'll look at reviews of similar products. I'll look to try and find common problems, common issues, things I can solve or make better. So once I've got that, then I've got a better idea of, is this product going to work? Once the product lands, from a strategy perspective, I usually start with kind of the big strategy that I use a lot is micro influencers. So again, I think going after bigger influencers when you're a startup is quite tough. Often you'll find they don't have as much influence over their larger audiences. So we focus on like 10,000 to 50,000 followers on a gift basis, and we go quite aggressive at that. And then from a Facebook ads perspective, historically I've always ran them in-house, and I work out what my break-even ROAS is, and I go after that. And ultimately I start small. And if I'm breaking even or I'm going above my ROAS, I will then scale those ads horizontally. So I'm sure you guys know all about that. But rather than just increasing my budget, I'll duplicate the ad and I'll scale horizontally over time and make sure that ROAS stays. Now, I'm a big believer that you don't have to be profitable out the gate. And I sometimes think people look at me a bit gone out when I say that.
Nope.
But the best marketing in the world is word of mouth. More so these days than ever. If I train bodyweight, calisthenics, fitness, whatever it may be, chances are I know lots of other people that do too. And product in hands, A, is the best way to get testimonials, reviews, feedback, how can you improve it? But also, it's in my experience, one of the best ways to share your message. Sometimes the best influencers in the world are not influencers, they're friends. You know, your friends have more influence over you than anybody, or certainly your friends and family and people that you trust. So personally, I believe get as many products in hand as you can out the gate and increase profitability as you go.
Because you're often, many brands, especially we work a lot with various different subscription businesses and non-subscription as well, and they don't quite get that you're buying a customer. They don't quite realise that actually it's often a 12 or 24-month turn on that customer that you'll start to make a decent amount of profit on that product. So I suppose a lot of that comes into that kind of branding piece and giving customers the confidence of you're shopping with the right brand, helping create that emotional connection with a consumer. So I suppose, what do you think makes a good brand?
So, well, funny enough, I had a Trustpilot review about 2 weeks ago, and I screenshotted it and posted it to my Instagram stories. And the review literally just said, "Great product, great price, great service." And I literally screenshotted it and said, "People often ask me the secret to a successful online business." There it is.
Yeah.
If you've got a great product that you've researched, you've done your due diligence, you know serves a customer and fulfills a need. If the product is great quality, does what you promise it will do and more, and you offer the best possible service, I think you will grow regardless. If your reviews, reviews are everything in this online world, aren't they? And if your reviews are constantly saying that you've bent over backwards, you've gone out of your way, because problems happen. I've had my fair share of problems. I'm by no means going to say that every batch we've done is perfect and we've never had issues. We've had so many issues. But often that's a great thing, because you sell the product to a customer and it's okay and they like it, they use it, you don't really get any dialogue from them. If you have a problem and they come to you, that's a big opportunity for you to A, create dialogue, B, build a relationship, but also to get that good review by going out of your way, even if it costs you, going out of your way to serve that customer and give them exactly what they want and treat them how you would want to be treated. Because I know in my experience, if I buy a product and it's faulty, and then I've got to return it, I've got to wait another week for it, it annoys me, it winds me up, and it leaves me with a very bad taste in my mouth to that brand. Whereas if that brand just said, "Yeah, look, we'll send you one straight out, and when we send the other one out, just swap it over and we'll collect the other." Okay, it's going to cost me an extra £6 or £7 to do that. But actually, I'm going to leave a much better taste in that customer's mouth. Chances are they're going to tell their friends. They're going to leave a review. If someone said pay £6 or £7 for a 5-star review, I'd be very surprised if anybody said no. Yeah. So I think it's worth it every single time. I think the biggest mistake people make is they think about profits, and I kind of feel like I'm going a bit anti-profit here, and that's not the case. Profit is everything. Of course, you wouldn't have a business, but people get too heavily focused on, "I've got to be profitable out the gate. It's all about the money, chase, chase, chase." And I guess that comes back to, if you've got a brand that you love, in a niche you love, and you're serving customers that you, maybe love's the wrong word for that, but you're serving customers that are that you know and you like and are part of an extension of things that you like, often the profit side isn't as important as the quality of the brand and the equity of the brand. And I believe if you want a long-term business, especially in these days, it's so, so important. Everybody's connected. You know, you can't just, there was the whole snake oil salesman and all the stuff in the 60s where you could just sell crap and nonsense and never see the customer again. Those days are gone. Like, you can't do that anymore. The only brands that are going to win are the ones that are offering great products, great service, great quality at a good price. It sounds cheesy, but it is what it is. There is no way around that.
No, completely with you.
Rich, how do you avoid temptation or greed to kind of lose focus and go into other products? Because you do have a set way of doing things. You know that if you find a product and do the research and everything, like in theory, you could spin up 100 businesses tomorrow if you had the time. How do you stop yourself doing that and know when enough is enough and when not to stretch yourself that step too far?
If I'm honest, it's my biggest challenge. Both personally and in business, it's the hardest thing that I go through as a person is once you kind of know what works and once you start to see opportunities. I mean, everybody says, I know everything is done now. It isn't. You know, I literally see opportunity day in, day out. And the hardest part for me is to not just go, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start another business. I'm going to start another brand. But equally, I know from running multiple brands the work that goes in. And I know myself to know well enough that if I get a brand that I focus on and there's too much going on, I neglect other things. And I'm married, I've got a newborn son, so that's part of what keeps me grounded. But also there is a big challenge for me there. I literally see opportunities and I want to do them all. So yeah, it's a struggle. I mean,
Rich, while it keeps you grounded, does it also push you as well? Now you've got a newborn and you've got your wife. Is that not also a temptation to say, you know what, I am going to try this because the quicker I can amass financial security, wealth, etc., I can give them the best life possible?
If I'm honest, I feel I'm in a very fortunate position. So we do very well as a business. I've managed to say to my wife, you don't need to worry about going back to work. If you want to, fine, but you don't need to. Stay at home, look after our son. We don't want for anything. We don't need anything. We're very comfortable. So in that respect, there isn't a kind of rush that I need a financial security because that's there. And actually, it's changed me in a way. I always said having a baby wouldn't change me, but it has. It's changed me in the opposite to that, though. What it's actually made me do is think about legacy and long term. So, what can I build in the long term? Rather than just trying to make quick cash now that comes and goes and doesn't really mean anything in the long term, how can I actually build a legacy? How can I build a long-term brand and something that actually my son can be proud of, my son can maybe inherit, or at some point we could exit for a life-changing figure? So it's changed my perspective from going after shorter, quicker, instant wins to actually thinking more in the long term because he's very much at the start of his life. So it's definitely changed my outlook, but not in the way that I thought it might.
How do you realise when you come to these kind of crossroads of change in your life? Because I think a lot of owner-founders either believe they're at a crossroads and it's more of just a transient point in their working life, or it is absolutely, I can clearly identify I need to either change or I need to stop. And I suppose that for me is something I'd be really interested in just understanding how you understand you're at that point in a journey historically.
So without sounding like Gary Vee, which is what I don't want to do, self-awareness is everything. Like being self-aware to know where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, the things that drive you. Knowing that is a huge part of that. So an example that's off topic, but it will just kind of give you an example of self-awareness is during the last lockdown, me and my wife got very into this habit of, the first time we found these woods that are quite close to the house. And we thought I would go for a walk. We're in lockdown. And the Starbucks was open, and we hadn't had a Starbucks for months because we were in lockdown. So we went there, we bought the Starbucks, and we bought a chocolate brownie, and we went for a walk. And it was lovely. The sun was out. It was really, really nice. We had a really nice time. Now, what happened is I recognised this. It took me a little while. But what happened is because that was such a nice memory and I enjoyed it, every couple of days it was, should we go for another walk in the woods, get a Starbucks and a brownie? Yeah, right. And we'd anchored this feeling of happiness. We'd anchored it to the Starbucks and the brownie, realistically. And it took me we went 4 or 5 times in a row, and it took me to that point where I went, I'm literally anchoring my happiness to the fact that we go there, we have a Starbucks, we have a brownie, we go for a walk. I need to stop it or I'm going to end up 25 stone. And I think it's very similar in business, that you need to, often things that leave good taste or bad taste in your mouth can really affect your decisions and your judgment moving forward. If you do a product and it loses, often people are very, very shy to do another one. Or if you have a product, and I see this all the time, it does really, really well. Very easy to convince yourself that you have the Midas touch and that every product you do and every business you do, regardless of your experience in that niche, is going to be successful. And that often isn't the case. So I think being really self-aware to know what you're good at and what you're not. I know what I'm good at. I'm very good at spotting opportunities. I'm very good at launching products. I'm good at putting marketing creative together. The analytical side, the organization, the keeping forecasts, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Worse than average. That's not my skill at all. And I've been trying to bang my head against the wall for years. I'm like a spoilt child if I know I've got to sit in front of a spreadsheet and now I will procrastinate, I will kick, I will scream. So much so that I employ other people to do it now. Because, as I say, I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. Product creation, finding opportunity, that's what I'm good at. The rest of it isn't what I'm good at all. It's not my skill set. So I'm a big believer in outsource the things that you're not good at, because often you'll get somebody better without any of the hassle and kind of grief of you sulking and kicking and screaming. And maybe that's just me, maybe I'm a big child, but knowing where your strengths lie is huge. I don't believe in trying to really focus on bringing up your weaknesses. I think just focus on your strengths and kind of leverage out your weaknesses to others.
Rich, I really love that Starbucks story, and actually entrepreneurship can be quite addictive, particularly with an addictive personality type. All of a sudden you're constantly chasing the next sale or the next win. For many people, having their own business is the dream in inverted commas. They see it as a way to escape the 9 to 5, to create this dream life, and they perhaps go into it with slightly rose-tinted glasses. For those that are listening today, have started a business, are investing, sometimes there's a point where you need to stop and get out because actually the thing is failing. At what point can you do that? Because you've got all this emotion around how you've got this dream life just on the horizon, and this business that you've put blood, sweat and tears into is going to get you there. But actually some people just continue rolling the dice, continue pressing the next roulette wheel, and essentially eventually lose all. How do we get them out at the right stage before enough is enough and they lose everything?
That's a really difficult question, and especially when you are driven and passionate about what you do. I mean, look, it hasn't all been roses, as I said to you earlier. I mean, I founded Venom in 2012, launched in 2013, so I've been doing this a long time. And actually, I had a friend come and see me a few months ago, and he said, some of my friends have become a bit, since I've sort of become a lot more successful, it's almost like some of my friends have distanced themselves or assumed that I've changed in some way. And since I had the baby, a few of them have come back round. And I said to him, you know, like, I feel like you've changed towards me, mate. And he went, no, I haven't. And I said, but the thing you have to remember is, okay, yes, I'm doing well now. I said, but when I got married in 2014, when I came back from my honeymoon, you had to lend me £100 to pay my mortgage because I was that broke. I'd got married, I'd gone on a honeymoon, fine. I was that broke. I had to borrow £100 to pay my mortgage. You were earning 50 grand a year at the time. Do you not think, and I paid myself £1,000 a month at the time, that was all I earned. Do you not think the years of self-doubt that I had and the years of should I just give up and get a job, I had all of that. Like, yeah, okay, it's worked out well now, but this has been, it hasn't been good as long as it was bad. You know, there's been lots and lots of issues and problems along the way. We once got hacked and sent £35,000 to a scam account in China. We managed to get the money back, but it took 2 weeks. And I was literally going to bed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for those 2 weeks because I thought I'd lost it all. I thought at the time that was it. You know, we were finished if we didn't get that money back. So, you know, there's maybe an argument that should I have given up at those times, but I didn't, and it's come good. I think if you're starting to go into negative balances, so I've never gone into the fact that we're getting into debt. The only time I did that was when I had the bar. And we got into £18,000 in debt, which is why I ended up closing and walking away. I think if you're starting to slip into negatives, then it's the time to give up. If you're kind of, you know, just kind of wiping your face and you're doing it, not losing your money and you can live and, you know, you're not about to get divorced or kicked out of your home. Personally, I think keep going because the things that you will learn, and it may not be this product or this brand, but actually the knowledge and the skill set that you learn in every business drives you to the next. You know, the bar didn't work for me, complete waste of time. But actually I learned a hell of a lot from that first business that I take into my second and third and fourth business. So It's a very difficult question without knowing somebody's specific circumstances of when do you give up. But I completely understand and agree with what you're saying. Like when you're so invested emotionally, it's very, very difficult to say this isn't going to work and admit that to yourself. This isn't going to work.
And interested with your mindset as well, Rich, because you've been at a place where you had nothing, coming back from the honeymoon and everything else. I guess you're not so afraid to lose everything because you know what it's like to be there. But for some people, perhaps they've never been to that stage where they've had to borrow money or whatever. And actually, therefore, there's more to lose, or more. They feel like more at stake because they can't believe a life where I guess they've become accustomed, right? They've become accustomed to a certain way of life. They've become accustomed to a guaranteed salary at the end of each month, and to lose all that, or to put that at risk, is maybe why some people don't take the plunge.
Definitely, 100%. And I think there's too many people kind of. So my rule to myself is live off 30% of what the business brings in, and the rest gets reinvested. Whether that's I live on 50p a month or whether that's I live on 10 grand a month, irrelevant. 30% is what I will live off, because what I was finding is that I was too far the other way, because I have had nothing, and most of my life I've had nothing, to be honest. Way more of my life did I have nothing. Grew up in council accommodation, never really had any money. Worked the doors, £10 an hour, and never really had any money. Lost my first business, never had any money. Spent years in doing this before I made any money. So I've had lots of periods in my life where I haven't had money. And what I've realised is when I started doing okay, I got really tight, and I didn't want to spend anything. I want to invest it all, put it all back into the business. So I was like, I'd go for a meal with my wife and be thinking, I don't know, I shouldn't spend this 60 quid really. I should go into business. I could go into something else. And it got a bit much. It got a bit stupid, to be honest. You're making really good money, but you're scared to spend it. So I set myself this thing where I will spend 30% no guilt. Whether that's whatever I want, a holiday, a car, whatever it is, 30% of what I'm bringing in, I will not feel guilty about spending that. I will enjoy it. I will enjoy my life with that. The rest I will invest into growing the business, into marketing, into new products, even investing into other things outside of the business. So I think having a few rules like that as you grow, not so much when you start up, because 30% of nothing is nothing, but having some rules like that for me has been a game changer, absolute game changer in my own personal happiness.
Do you think there's so I'm going to spin it a little bit into societal kind of conversation, because it's interesting, that bit around, that council background, that kind of drive to almost get out of that lifestyle that you had growing up in that kind of space. Do you think as a society we put enough into helping the youth of today understand that they can be controllers of their own destiny, or is there too much of a, I'm going to use a horrible phrase, but a cap in hand mentality almost? They almost feel as though they expect it rather than having to work for it.
I think the biggest challenge in society, so to be clear, I'm a lover of social media. I'm not going to diss social media. I like it. It's how I've grown my business in many ways. But I think the biggest problem now is when I was 22, I had my own bar. Now, at 22 in my town, having my own bar made me a big success in my mind. It never made any money. It was a complete, absolute dump hole. But I got the enjoyment. And to be honest, my ego grew a bit too big, and it probably wasn't the best thing for me. But I got the enjoyment out of feeling successful. More so probably then than I do now. Because the problem is now is at 22 there wasn't really Instagram and things like that. Whereas you've got 22-year-olds now could go and have a bar or start their first business and be doing okay in their friendship groups. But you go on Instagram, there's a 22-year-old making £400 million doing something, or you hear of Ben from Gymshark who's now worth $1 billion, and all of a sudden your achievements become almost worthless in your own mind. Or certainly I think that's the trap that many young people fall into. But also going back to the story about, so my friend was judging me on the fact that I'd got to a certain level of success, but forgetting all the years that have gone in. Now that's somebody that's seen those years that have gone in. However, I could go and post a picture on Instagram tomorrow of a nice car or nice whatever, nice holiday, my house, whatever it may be. And somebody could buy into the fact that that can be achieved overnight, or that can be achieved in 6 months, not this is taking me a decade. So I think there's the now mentality is a bit too wrong. I don't think people are teaching it, but it's not sexy, is it? It's not sexy to say, right, find something that you love, learn it inside and out, spend years and years and years learning it, and then maybe you'll make money. That's not sexy. Nobody wants to buy into that. It's got to be, you'll make loads of money next week. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems. I mean, I said earlier, my stepson is 18 now, and he said to my wife, I think I might start Forex trading. And I thought, I mean, I deal with currency a lot in my business, and I very rarely win from forwards, to be honest. And I sat him down with him and said, your mum said you want to do Forex. And he said, yeah, I do. Yeah, I've seen it on Instagram. I said, all right, fair enough. And I overplayed it a little bit because obviously I didn't really want to go into it. I said, so if you want to do Forex, that's fine. I said, start off playing with a zero money account, just a demo account, and spend a year doing that. I said, after that year, start playing with 20 or 30 quid, spend another year doing with that. And then over time, start to increase the money. Use this as your way to learn. I said, but what I would say is if you want to do Forex, you need to know exactly what Boris is going to announce, exactly what they're announcing in the States. You need to read the news, the Financial Times. You need to know exactly, like I said, I hammered this home on purpose. You need to know exactly what's going on in the world. Are you interested in that? And he went, no, not at all. I said, well, Forex isn't for you then. And ever since that day, he's never mentioned it again. And I think that's really important to say, that you've got to have that interest and drive to spend those years learning a talent or an art or the biggest thing that I see that everybody's jumping on cryptocurrency, and I'm not saying there's not a lot of money to be made, because perhaps there is, I don't know enough about it, but it feels like nobody wants to learn how to create value. They'd rather just gamble on what the next big thing might be. And actually creating the value, that's what's going to make you money for the rest of your life. So no, in response to your question, even though I've gone around the houses to answer it, I don't think there is enough in there, but I think the mentality is to have it all yesterday. I don't think there's enough in actually teaching the younger generation that find something you like, try lots of things until you find something you like, put the time in, perfect it, because we live in a world where if you're good at something, you can make a lot of money from it, regardless of what it is. There's pretty much anything now. If you're good at it, you will make money from it. So you've got to perfect it and learn the skill. So no, I don't think there's enough out there about that.
Rich, I like your story around the friendships, and I think that's something that many owner-founders can relate to, that going through life and going through business, you will make some new friends, you will perhaps lose some old friends, you'll lose touch, etc. Do you ever resent the business and the journey you've been on because you've then lost touch with those friends you thought were lifelong friends?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a brilliant question. So, no, not at all. I don't. I love what I do. I love my business, and I genuinely wake up each day feeling fortunate to do what I do. So there's no resentment there at all. Have I been surprised in time? Yes, but also I think there's been my own learning curve from it. You see, what happens is your standards change, and the things that you want to talk about, the things that you want to do change, and because of it's. So my friends that don't necessarily have that relationship with me as much now, it's not that they've changed, it's that I've changed so much. It's on me, not them, really. So what I've realised that you've got to do is take people for who they are and understand that not everybody's going to have big, in-depth business conversations. Some of your friends are going to be just, let's go for a meal, have a laugh, have a joke. Other of your friends are going to be, you might go to relationship advice. You can't get one thing from all people. So I think understanding what each friendship brings to the table is a game changer. So many of those friends that I distance myself from, I'm now finding that we're starting to see a lot more of each other again, because there are shared interests. We've got kids and things now, or we're going out for meals. So the things that disappeared are almost coming back full circle in different ways. So I take a bit of responsibility for it, because I think that you kind of see those friends and think, oh, you're talking about the latest football result, or you're all talking about what you did at work this week, and I just can't comprehend it because it's not what I do. And I think actually you've got to step back and understand that it's you that's changing. So no, there's no resentment there, but there's definitely been a lot of personal growth. And I think that I always had this belief, like I always wanted to be, I don't want to use the word financially free, I hate words like that. But, I wanted to build wealth, I wanted to get to certain numbers and certain things. And I always had this kind of belief, and Stephen Bartlett writes about this in his book, and I think it's so true, that you think you're going to hit a number or a goal, and like all these fanfares are going to go off, and all your friends are going to clap for you, and life's going to be completely different. And then you hit it, and you're like, oh, well, no one really cares. They're all wrapped up in their own life, doing their own thing, and actually my life's not really any different. And it's really underwhelming. It's mentally quite tough, because you expect to hit this goal, and it's going to be amazing. And you get there, and you're like, oh, is that it? Is that all that means? And then you kind of chase the next goal. And I think you can get yourself on quite a rough path if you go down that route. And like I say, Stephen Bartlett writes about people playing life like it's a finite game. like there's a win or lose somewhere. The only time you win or lose at life is when you die. The key to life is keeping yourself in the game. So constantly winning every day, feeling happy, feeling gratitude. That's the win. The win isn't necessarily the achievement of a number or a specific goal. It's the chase and the journey, for want of a better term. So I think there's been a lot of personal growth there for me, definitely, in recent years.
I think we've talked a little bit before on this series around, not setting your goals too far ahead. So, we've talked about Marco Polo, or one of the great discoverers of our entire kind of history as a human race. They didn't go to end up somewhere. They left port looking to find something. And the goal was pure discovery. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think that's something which entrepreneurs have in their blood of, I actually just want to go and discover what I'm good at. I want to discover where I can succeed. I want to discover the future of me in many ways, or us as a group, as a group of people. Does that resonate with you at all?
Definitely. I tend to have top line goals, but I think another big problem in society, like I've got a friend that's he's a lovely guy and he's on a business journey, but he's not really had much success in it. But he said to me one day, like, yeah, Rich, I've read this book and I've set myself a goal. I want to be worth 700 million. And I'm like, right, well, how are you going to achieve? What's the plan?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't really know. Well, you need to have some stepping stones. You can't just, I believe in the law of attraction. I've read lots about it and I believe in that. But the law of attraction without action is just a wish. You can't just say to the universe, I want 700 million and expect that you're going to get a check next week. Like, it doesn't work like that. So I feel like, yeah, it's okay to set bigger goals, but you've got to set the smaller stepping stones along the way of actually, how are you going to achieve this? Is it possible? Are you going to be able to achieve X in this time and this time and this time? Setting those smaller goals, I think, is really important. But also, I think from a self-confidence point of view, if you set yourself a big goal that's too far away and it takes a long time to achieve it, what happens is your self-confidence starts to diminish.
Yeah.
If you set yourself a small goal and you win, I've done that one, and another one and you win, I've done that one. And even if it's just something like, I'm going to go and do some fitness, or I'm going to diet, or I'm going to achieve this small goal. And by stacking those wins over time, that's where your self-confidence comes from, in my opinion. Having those small little wins, those small little achievements, knowing that you're growing as a person, getting better, doing more. That's where that inner happiness and self-confidence comes from. Just saying, I want to be worth 400 million next week with no intention or no knowledge of how to do it, it's actually going to lead you, in my opinion, down a pretty dark, unhappy path.
Yeah, for some of us, a diet is not necessarily a small goal, I hasten to add, because I'm terrible trying to convince myself I need to diet. But the last thing, I suppose, from me, because we're kind of coming to the end of time, I suppose, is that kind of ability to put things into strategic goals. And that kind of, it's smart, isn't it? They say strategic, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. So it's kind of setting those goals out to be kind of very much in that reachable. You can just about touch it, but it's just out of reach enough that you need to kind of put the effort in to kind of get there, and that you can see that goal. I suppose, Nathan, any kind of final thoughts or questions for Rich, and then we'll come to you and kind of very much get your kind of wrap up, Rich. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, certainly. My last question is really around investing in yourself versus investing in the business. And so many solopreneurs maybe invest in one without the other, but actually you can invest in yourself and in turn invest in the business, and trying to get people over the mindset of feeling guilty for going on course. Or you touched a bit about personal development, the importance of reading books, watching podcasts, etc. That's also working on the business. That's not playtime, and that's also really important and something we can get across. In terms of you had a really nice metric earlier about 30% you kind of live off. What type of portion of budget would you assign to training, development, improving yourself, that kind of thing?
So I'd look at sort of 5 to 10%, but obviously that massively relies on how much you bring in. So personally, for me, I haven't spent. I mean, I've done courses and I've had mentors and things along the way. But I mean, I must have read 200 personal development books since 2012. Like, that's really what set me on my journey in the first place, from a dark place of I've lost my business, what the hell am I going to do next? To it, I mean, it all started with me with a very well-known book of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I was out in a bar with a friend, and he said he'd started having success, and he was like, read this book, it would change your life. And I remember starting reading it thinking, I mean, it was written in the 1930s, like, I couldn't understand it. It was really, really hard to read. But as I got into it, that really did change my outlook and got me very into the whole personal development journey. And for me, I'm almost addicted to that. I believe that if you're not growing, you're dying. I once said that to my mom, and she was not impressed at all. But I do believe that. I believe that we should be growing all of the time and trying to achieve more goals, not always financially. Like, I mean, I'm 200 pounds, I lift weights. I have done my whole life, and I've set myself a goal. I'm going to run a marathon in September. And when I say I'm going to do it at 200 pounds, I'm not going to lose any weight. People are like, you're mental. You can't do that. But for me, it's just the next attainment. It's the next something else. It doesn't always have to be financially, but I know that's going to make me a better person because I'll be able to go into that dark place and push myself past where I think I can.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And I read something the other day, I won't waffle on too much more, but I read something the other day in a book actually about somebody training for an Ironman. And he called procrastination. Often people confuse things that they like in personal development. He called it spending time in a dark playground. So you can go out spend 2 hours in the gym or whatever it is that you love, or reading a personal development book, or taking a week out of your business to go and do a course. And often that you end up feeling guilty. Like, I shouldn't be spending this time out of my business. I shouldn't, I should be working harder. I should be doing more. But actually, the development is you. Your business may come and go, other brands, other things, you might exit, whatever, but you're stuck with you forever. And actually those skills that, like I said to you earlier, like the bar didn't work for me. But the skills that I learned, I'll carry through the rest of my life. So personal development is absolutely essential. And that's the key to how you're going to earn more, be happier, which is, let's be honest, be happier comes first. Earn more is fantastic, but we need to be happy. Money without happiness is empty, which is why, or money without fulfillment is empty. That's why, look at Robin Williams, one of the most well-known stars in the 80s and 90s of ever, and everybody loved him. But as time went on, he lost the fulfillment and he lost himself. And I think having that and being aware of that is number one. That's the most important. Everything else comes secondary to that.
I can't think of a better statement to leave on, to be quite honest. So, Rich, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic. I think loads of founders will get some really amazing little nuggets from today's episode. So again, we really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us on this edition of Brand Designs.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Take care.
That's
very soon.